Hey everyone, today I'm here with the fantastic H.S Valley. H.S Valley published her debut book, which won the Ampersand Prize, Tim Te Maro and the Subterranean Heartsick Blues, in July 2021. It has a beautiful cast of diverse characters, and it is a wholesome, sweet, sometimes raunchy, and super gay book. However, she's not just super talented at writing. She also has a Bachelor of Arts in Design and a Diploma in Teaching. Is there anything she can't do? I believe that H.S Valley is an inspirational author because of a beautiful book, Tim Te Maro and the Subterranean Heartsick Blues, and its positive bisexual representation in literature, especially of bisexual males, which is something we need more of in our media and literature, as often bisexual females are over-sexualized and fantasized about, but bisexual males and non-binary folk are totally ignored. So I absolutely adore this representation. H.S Valley, thank you so much for letting me grill you.
You are totally welcome. Hello. Grill away.
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah, sure. I'm a little bit nervous because I haven't read the questions, but go. I trust you.
My first two questions have nothing to do with your work. You love plants and gardening. If you could grow any plant, real or fictional, what would it be?
Money tree. Oh, yeah, money tree, because money. And then I could buy more books.
Yes.
Real one, I would probably say banana tree, because, and I can go on a tangent about bananas now. Is that okay?
Yes.
Love a good tangent. Okay, good. Cavendish bananas are the standard bananas now. There used to be other bananas. Now, the flavor of banana lollies was made from this other banana variety. And then I think it was either some sort of pest or disease or storm, let's say pestilence, because it's a great word, wiped out all of the other bananas. And so the only banana that survived the banana apocalypse was the Cavendish banana, which is our current banana. But that is why actual bananas and banana lollies taste very different, is because they are based on, well, they're different bananas, basically. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. I had no idea about that.
Oh, and there's something to do with the Cavendish banana is really resilient to pests or something. And it wasn't a very popular banana before, but now it's like the only banana. To the point where Australia has a bad storm, bananas go up to like $15 a kilo.
Yes.
And then New Zealand has none because you guys have got them all. There's also no bananas in the book because my editor made me take them out. I know. It's all right. We forgive her. It was for pacing. She's not anti-banana.
So, you had a neighborhood cat, I believe. Could you tell us a bit about that cat? Because it's a bit of a funny story, I believe I've heard.
Technically, it wasn't my neighborhood because I'd moved out of my parents' house by then, but they had this random cat, really beautiful, expensive pedigree cat, would have been worth thousands of dollars, turn up as a kitten, like an older kitten, and start trying to sneak into their house. And they were like, oh, cute kitten, it must be lost. Oh my God. And so they would be like, oh, you poor kitten, you must be hungry. And they did all the absolute sap things that you do when a cute kitten shows up. And then the kitten got a bit sassy. And when you tried to put it back outside, it would be like, bitch, I live here. And you're like, no, this is my house. You don't live here. We don't live here. And so they eventually figured it out that it belonged to a couple 2 doors along who had kids and had started renovating. So the combination of children and loud noises had just driven this cat insane, and it was like, I don't want to live. So she would like go around all the different houses at different times of day depending on who was home. So she would turn up at my parents' house at like 4 o'clock when my stepdad got home from work, and would then be their cat till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, when my mum eventually tried to pry her off the couch and put her outside. But yeah, it was weird because I walked into my parents' house, and this is how I found out about this random cat that they'd acquired. And there was a cat sitting on my mother, and I'm like, we don't have a cat. She gave me the story, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But for context, this is after my parents adopted a seagull. They thought it was 2 seagulls. Technically, it was a black-backed gull. They lived near the beach. And there was one in juvenile feathers, so it was brown and white. And they called it Harold for whatever reason. So Harold the seagull, and it's huge. They're large birds. And he would come and they would feed him scraps, and he would like always turn up on their balcony and go, hi, I'm a very large bird. You should feed me. And they're like, oh, cute. He must be lost or lonely or whatever. They had no kids in the house at this point, and I didn't visit enough apparently, and the other 2 had moved away. So they were like, we must nurture. And then he disappeared, and they were like, oh, well, the bird is gone. And I'm like, well, birds live seasonally. I almost said you guys might remember high school, but they probably don't because they're very old, and I think they both dropped out quite early. That is the cat story, which is actually also partly a bird story. But now they moved away, that cat must just be like, where did you go? How dare you? You left without me. Oh. End of story. Tangent over.
I love your parents, and I love that cat. It's so funny. I absolutely adore your book.
Thanks.
Where did you get the inspiration for it from?
The New Zealand distributor, HarperCollins, told me not to tell anyone. Yeah, good question. Sorry.
Good.
Tell you when you stop recording.
All the characters in this book are amazing. I especially like Elliot. He's my favorite. Which character was the most fun to write and play around with their development?
Ooh. Manaya was the funnest to write because she was like my self-insert. So she got to say all the stuff that I wanted to say. But then there's that nerdy kind of fun, which is how do I show people what this guy's like without just telling you what he's like. And that was Sam. And he's kind of based on a few friends of mine. And he was just really interesting because I had him in my head, and I'm like, you're so autistic. You're just like this kid I used to teach, and a little bit like my husband. And I totally relate to everything that you do, and I love you. But having it encompass all of that without dictating that it was that way. I don't know. He's secretly, to me, he's on the spectrum. And that's why he's always giving like real serious answers. And like, actually, he's the glue that is holding everyone together when they're all freaking out. And he's like, no, I'll be fine. And they're like, ah! And he's like, no, I told you already. Were you not listening when I gave you the instructions that were perfect once? So yeah, he's actually, now that I've said that, he's almost definitely based mostly on my husband, who is a darling and will hopefully never watch this, because I did tell him I based a character on but the most fun in a me to the reader was actually the trans character that I didn't say was trans, but I put them in there to see if the 3 trans guys in one of my design classes, two, and their friend, to see if they noticed him. Damn it, I just gave away half of, or did I? To see if they noticed that person, because there's 3 clues in there, and so far nobody has got it. And I'm like, when they're like, you need to tell me, or I'm going to go insane. I'm like, okay, well, turn to page blah, read the second half of the right-hand page, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, gotcha. So that was really fun. And yeah, I asked them, I'm like, how would you feel if there was a trans character and I didn't tell you who it was, and you had to figure it out based on clues that you would understand that the straights would not? And they're like, oh, I love it. So that's my little tribute to them. And yeah, one day someone will figure it out without having to ask me, and I'll be so proud. But at the moment, I feel like I've hidden them just a little bit too much. Sorry. Let me know if you figure it out.
I will once I do. I'm pretty sure I had a clue, but I haven't read it in a while, so I'll have to reread it and figure that out. Figure out who that character is.
That's my real aim there, is just to get everyone to reread it. So you get with it. Start drawing me fan art. I have a fan art. It's lovely.
Oh. Yeah, I definitely found Sam relatable. He was a very much relatable, very sharp and to the point, and like, just like, well, why aren't you listening?
Why are you all idiots?
Yes.
We never say that. He's a polite young man, but
yes, but it's implied.
Very much implied. And I love the bit where they're standing. I won't spoil it, but they're standing. Him and Sylvia are standing next to the bed, and he's like, "I don't want to be here now. I'm leaving." And she's like, "Why are we doing this? This is so awkward. I don't like it."
That's me. I'm just like, I'm done now. I've arrived. I'm done. I'm gonna leave. Yes. That's how I feel sometimes.
Not be here. I want food. But yeah, he was great fun. There were things that I know that I put in there, and then there were things that got edited out, and now I can't remember how much of what I did with him is actually in there and how much got taken out. Just because time and pacing and length. They were like, keep it to 75,000 words. And I'm like, do I have to? I think it's 75,153 or something.
The perfect amount for a book, though. I mean, that's a nice even number for it.
It is. So long as you don't try and read it in one sitting, but you started in the afternoon. Like someone on Instagram the other day who's like posted a picture of it at 4:37. They're like, I finished it. Like, go to bed. What are you doing? This is like on a Wednesday night. It's not even like Friday night, Saturday night, a dream. It's just like, oops.
I was tempted. It's a compelling read. I was tempted, but I'm like, I'm going to regret it tomorrow if I do, because I won't be able to focus or function. So I had to force myself.
Functioning is optional.
Yeah.
Right?
It's recommended though sometimes. With energy levels, functioning wise.
But like, if you're tired, people feel sympathetic. They're like, I'm so snoozy.
True.
Please help me. Bring me tea. Doesn't work at home either.
Too much away for those who haven't read it yet. I absolutely love the element of magic in this book with the mind as healers, defenses, and offensives. If you could be any one of them, which would you choose?
Someone asked me this the other day, and I was like, ooh. Part of the old person in me wants to be a philosopher so I can just sit really still and read books. But the other half of me kind of wants to hit people with sticks, which kind of leads you to the defensive category. But I think I decided elemental and focusing on water. Is it water or earth? I think it was water. Because I like to mess with people's drinks. That'd be funny. I'm like, oh no, your drink spilled on you.
Oh, what a shame.
Water out of someone. You could like dehydrate someone who you really didn't like. You could like, yeah.
Smart.
If there's no fluid in their eye, they would be really uncomfortable. But they've also got no way of proving it was you. This is where I reveal I'm a psychopath. Did you? Sorry. But I would be able to keep the tea hot. I reckon that would be advantageous because I tend to make tea and then forget it exists. It's such a thing that my husband actually bought me an electric coaster that keeps it warm, but you have to plug it in to a USB port. And I'm like, I shouldn't have tea near electricals. So
there was a lot of relatable, cute, and awkward moments in the book between Tim and Elliot. Were any of these inspired by real life experiences?
Probably all of them. Yeah. Like, everything's awkward. But then when you have to talk about bits and stuff and things and who's touching what, everything's like really, really awkward. And I hate that conversation, but it has to happen or bad things happen. Also, I really like making my students squirm, and like obviously that bit's got nothing to do with the consent conversations. But like when they'll make a joke that's a little bit iffy and you're like, I don't know what you mean. Can you explain that? And they're like, no, because they just realized that, oh, here's the dog. That by explaining it, they're going to make themselves look usually racist, occasionally homophobic, which doesn't really go very well in my classroom. It is always funny when I get a new student who doesn't know me and they're like, everyone around them is like, no, read the room. My room is it's rainbows and pride flags and unicorns and Barbies. It's amazing. One of my senior students who just left this year bought me wheelchair Barbie to be friends with wheelchair Ken, because I teach architectural stuff. So I go on about accessibility and how stuff has to be equitable instead of just equality. And like, if you don't have ramps in New Zealand, that's like a violation of the building code because New Zealand's nice. Unlike America. Sorry, America. Like, just in general, sorry, America. And the fact that I'm a little bit evil and I like to make people suffer and squirm.
That's the fun part of writing with authors. You can make your characters suffer a little bit with just like those awkward scenes and all that. It's fun to write.
It is. That's my favorite. Awkwardness and pining.
It was a little raunchy in some parts. Have all your friends and family read it, and how did they feel about it?
They hadn't all read it when it was published. My mum got very excited because it was a real book and she was holding it. She's like, oh my God, it's just like a real book. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, Mum. My biological father sent me several text messages asking what was wrong with me. But overall decided it was well written, just weird. And I'm like, yeah, but you're weird too. Some of my friends have read it and some of them have read like previous versions of it before like it went to the official real people editors at Hardy Grant. And there were a few comments from them of like, you sure this is YA? It's a bit, and I'm like, it's fine. It's based on real life. But yeah, they made me take a lot of the raunchy stuff out. Many sentences were taken out, basically. They weren't even replaced with anything. They just got a lot smaller. There was a shower scene that I had to cut, even though nothing happened in it. They didn't even kiss in the shower. And then it was like, I went to boarding school and people don't have showers together. I'm like, you went to a very boring boarding school, because that is not what I heard about boarding schools at all. At all. Yeah. Anybody else who's listening to this who went to boarding school and knows better, you let us know. Like, I work at a school. We're not a boarding school. We don't have communal showers. The bathrooms are separated by gender, and neither of those. And yet we still find people together in the bathrooms, doing far worse things than they were doing in that shower.
Oh, it's so good. Now we're on to the rapid fire round. 20 seconds. Okay. 0 explanations. There's a bell. What are you writing at the moment? It's called the Plant Boys book. It's about Connor and Jesse and stuff. What is your favorite ice cream flavor? Oh God. Something with berries in it.
It's not very rapid if you keep laughing at me.
What is your least favorite book genre to read?
Ooh, men writing women. Is that a genre? Yeah.
What is your current favorite book or series?
Probably Henry Hamlet's Heart, because I love it. It's the first book that I've ever like put post-it tags in.
If you could go inside any book for a day, which would it be?
Does this have to be for wholesome reasons?
No, it could be for any reason.
Okay, so I could kill someone.
Yeah, if you wanted to.
Hitler's biography.
Yes.
That's sad. For the good of everyone.
From a different book, which character would you love to have dinner with? So, not from this book.
What I would? Who? What? Again?
Which character would you love to have dinner with from a different book?
All right. I missed the word dinner, and I was like, really? Oh God. The wolf, Night Eyes, from the Assassin's Apprentice trilogy by Robin Hobb. I mean, I might be dinner, but that's a good way to die.
What's the weirdest thing you've gotten inspiration from?
God, the list, as you can imagine, is long. I can't really remember, but the first thing that came to my mind is when I was on a tram in Melbourne, and the woman in front of me was wearing underpants on her head. And I remember trying to come up with something to write that would make that make sense. Like, she must have had some sort of logic, but what was that logic? And can I create a scenario myself in which that is normal behavior?
What was your worst school subject?
Oddly, the one I went into, which was art. I like a challenge, and I'm a stubborn bitch.
What's your most significant achievement? It could be anything.
I got my driver's license, finally, after it making me exceptionally anxious for a really long time. That was the one that made a difference to my life the most. And now I love my car. Every car that I've had, I have loved. But it took a long time to get there. It was scary. And the lady was really mean to me.
Well done for that achievement. That's definitely a very big achievement. What advice do you have for young writers?
Write a lot of fan fiction. It's great practice.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much for letting me grill you.
Very welcome. I'm glad you pretended to enjoy all of my strange stories and side quests.
They were so amazing, though. I loved listening to them.
Oh, so many.
Make sure to go check out H.S Valley on her social media and
I have one social media.
Yeah, buy the book. It is an amazing book. You will not regret reading it.
Buy the real copy. It looks like this. There's
the really amazing, glorious looking one.
Mm-hmm. And this is the tattoo that everyone needs to get. Yeah. Not everyone. Maybe it's Alex. Awesome. So it's like when they tried to go to Bali during the monsoon, and I'm sitting there at like 12 going, there's a reason the tickets are very cheap right now, and it's because you would be swimming. We're there. It is monsoon season. And they're like, oh, it'll be fine. They wouldn't sell tickets if it was dangerous. And I'm like, they sell tickets to New Zealand. And you're allowed to just fall off stuff over here. And everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a shame. So they thought that their bird had disappeared. And then he came back the next year and they're like, oh, why is this other different bird here? Not realizing because again, with the lack of school and science, that it was the same bird with adult plumage, and that's why it was acting so familiar, because they were, oh my God, did Harold tell this new bird about us? And is that what they do when birds meet up and like hang out? They're like, oh, this absolute sucker of a couple. They give us so much bacon. But yeah, and then, but they've, by that stage, they'd renamed him Percy, which is short for persistent, because the bird was acting really familiar and like demanding, but they thought that they didn't know the bird, but the bird knew that they did know each other. The bird was like, oh my God, you guys, come on. And eventually, yeah, and then it was years in the making. He came back with his girlfriend, which I think they called Priscilla and Percy. And yeah, and then last year, I think it was, Priscilla did not come back with Percy. And my mum was like, oh no, what's happened? And I'm like, birds, don't know. So yeah, that's my parents in a nutshell. They will adopt them, come near them. Anyway,
So funny.
that's very pretty. She has the same name as my editor, which is quite cute. So I was able to send editor Luna a picture of cat Luna and say, this cat's name's the same as you. And that happens fairly often with anything else that's called Luna. I found this really disgusting outfit online, and it was called the Luna bodysuit. And so I sent that to her. I'm like, is this modeled on you? And she's like, I hate you, and no. And oddly, when I forget my dog's name, I assume her name is Luna, which is no reflection on my editor because she's lovely. I don't even know where it is anymore. But I still have my laptop, so nothing bad happened. And I've learned to use the microwave. Not that I didn't know how to use a microwave before, but like, you know what I mean. Next question. I look like an idiot.
You don't. There was a lot of relatable, cute, and awkward moments in the book between Tim and Elliot. Were any of these inspired by real life experiences?
Probably all of them. Yeah, like everything's awkward, but then when you have to talk about bits and stuff, okay, you know those things that go in the house guttering, and they're like a bottle brush but huge. They're like a gutter whiskers, they call them. Keep all the leaves out of your gutter. This seems like a really weird aside. My dog's chewing on one, and that's what she's brought inside. And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's call that an outside toy. Hang on, let me see it. This thing, it is like a giant whiskery worm. And they're meant to sit, well, they're meant to be straight for starters. Boring. But they sit inside the gutter and they stop the leaves from falling in the gutter and clogging it up. But because she just twitched when I moved it. Because she's part greyhound, she likes to kill small fluffy things. And although this is neither small nor fluffy, it's apparently spiky enough that she would like to play with it. Make it dead. Oh, I put it over there. This is not a tug of war, but it is, when you're like, you're a bad child. Now she's taking it outside. Oh, and then she's realized that the door isn't open enough, so she can't get out. She's got the gutter whisker that way, and she's like, can't get through the door. If I appear to be moving strangely, it's because I'm sitting on a wheelie chair. If you want another side story, this is a wheelie chair that I got off my best friend, and we had gone to the movies together. And I'd caught the bus and he'd driven. And so he gave me the wheelie chair out of his car in the car park. And I ended up sitting in a bus stop on a wheelie chair waiting for the bus to come. And when the door opened, the bus driver just kind of looked at me like, what? Okay. Yeah. It was kind of awkward being on the bus with a wheelie chair because there was nowhere to put it. And like when the bus went forward, the wheelie chair wanted to whee, but it, yeah. Good fun. Yeah. This is what got taken outside. He now has an extra hole in his bum. Ah! Maybe say comic book sounds out loud. I hate you. Say yes to a bunch of stuff. That would be another really good piece of advice for young writers, but for young anyone. You know that movie, The Yes Man? It had Jim Carrey in it. I watched that and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder what would happen if, which is the usual way that something crazy happens if. And I just decided that I had to say yes to pretty much everything within reason that I was asked for like the next month. And so I remember a friend of mine calling me up and saying, hey, we're going around to so-and-so's house for drinks. Do you want to come around? And I was literally in my pajamas in bed. And I was like, oh, I have to say yes. Guess this is happening. And I was just like, got out of bed, put my clothes back on, went out, had a great time, and explained that story a couple of times. And they're like, why did you get out of bed? I'm like, because I had to. I made an agreement with myself. It was good. I did a lot of random stuff that week, that month. I can't remember anything about. It was years ago. I was like 19. I was a baby. Definitely don't try mountain biking when you're already old. Yes, you remember to ride a bike, but it hurts a lot more. You don't like it. Mountain biking's bad. But I do recommend going on one of those tree rope courses because that's actually quite fun. And if you fall, the harness catches you. And I challenge you to take a coffee up there. Be that guy. Photographs of me up a tree, like 30 meters with a flat white going, yeah, rock and roll.
I want to try that. That sounds pretty cool. Sounds awesome.
I immensely enjoyed tree adventures in Woodhill Forest in Auckland. I'm not sponsored by them, but I would like to be because I do like trees. And they have a flying fox, or 2 or 3. That's it. I'm going to sneeze now. No. This is probably my second most amazing achievement. It is the content warning. It says parental advisory, mature content, not suitable for younger readers. Yeah. That was Walmart's doing.